episode 2 of Real Estate 101. I'm your host, Sammy Shahid, with
Jessica Rotta. Hi, everyone. I work with Cold Insurance. Happy to be here today. We're going to be answering a few questions about insurance market. And let's get started.
Let's get into it. So, question 1, why do we need home insurance?
All right. Well, first of all, it is required by law to have insurance, not really completely optional. So if you have a mortgage on your house, you do need to have insurance. If you don't have a mortgage, not so much, but that's what brings us to the second factor, that a house is your biggest asset, right? Whenever you're selling a house, you're telling the people, hey, this is going to be your biggest asset. And speaking from a real estate investor point of view as well, is the highest wealth building asset from building equity. So we want to make sure that that's protected, and that's where the home insurance comes in.
So what's included in a homeowner's policy?
All right, so there's 5 main coverages and deductibles. So the first coverage is what we call dwelling. It's the most important one. It's coverage A. So that covers the structure of the house, and it's based on the RCE, which means replacement cost estimator. That means if something happens to the house, it's a total loss, how much would it cost to completely rebuild the house as it stands today? Important thing to know is that it has nothing to do with the loan amount or the price of the home, because you as a realtor, you know that a lot goes into the price of the home, right? So lot size, neighborhood, location. So we don't take that into account whenever we think of the structure of the home. So that's what dwelling is. The next coverage is other structures, which would be the sheds, fences, barns, or detached garage, or anything like that. That's usually 2% of the dwelling amount. The next coverage C, is personal property. So all the things that you have, if you were to take your house and turn it upside down, all the things that will fall, right? Usually it's 25 to 50% of the dwelling amount, depends on the carrier. It is important to note, though, that the appliances are not included, that if you have any valuable items, such as jewelry, collectible items, like very expensive paintings, you can get an additional endorsement, which we call the PAF, which is personal articles floater, which allows you to, cover a bigger amount that would not cover in your home insurance. The fourth coverage is loss of use, which means if there's damage to your house that you cannot live in it during the repair, it will cover your living expenses during that loss of use of the house. So food and lodge, stuff like that. And the fifth and last one is liability, which covers anything related to liability for your house and protects you against a lawsuit. So say if someone comes to your house and trips and twists their ankle and chooses to sue you for that, that's what liability covers. And it's usually 100 to 300K of coverage. And so to the deductibles part, we have hurricane and windstorm and all the perils. So the hurricane is a percentage of the dwelling amount. It's usually 1%, 2%, or 5%. And it's what comes out of pocket that the homeowner has to buy if something were to happen. And the insurance carrier covers the rest. And all the perils are everything else that is not windstorm. So fire, theft, vandalism, and it's usually a set amount. So 1,000, 1,500, something like that. And it's the same thing. It's what comes out of pocket before the insurance comes in and pay for the rest. It's also important to know about deductibles that the highest the deductible is, probably the lowest the rate will be, because you're paying more out of pocket in case something happens.
Right. So what other coverages are there?
Well, besides the 5 main coverages that I talked about before, they're included in your policies: medical payments, water backup. There's some other smaller ones. There are certain coverages that you actually need a separate policy for. So, for example, wind. That's usually included in your policy as a deductible that we talked about earlier. However, the more coastal a house gets, the carriers start excluding the wind. And then that's where TWIA comes in, which is Texas Windstorm Insurance Association, and they do a different policy for the wind. And you actually are required to have that if your house is coastal. The other coverage that you need a separate policy for is flood insurance. And there's this organization called FEMA, and they decide where the flood zones are. So if your house is at a higher risk zone, you're required to have flood insurance. You don't need a elevation certificate anymore. You used to need it in the past, but it can help you get a better rate if you have one. And there's 2 ways that you can get. There's private carriers that usually nowadays are there are 20 of them out there, which 3 years ago used to be, 3. And NFIP, which is National Flood Insurance Program. And either FHA or conventional loan can accept either of them. About other coverages, there's not that many that like you are required to have. If you want to have additional liability, we can get you a general liability policy, you know, so you can get you, I don't know, $1 million coverage or something like that. But those two, wind and flood policies, are the ones that could be required at a certain point.
So what are some common things that you guys see on the insurance side after closing?
All right, so I feel like one of the most common things is something goes wrong after closing. Like, let's say the mortgage company sold their loan to the bank, and in the transfer of it, not everything transferred, and they did not pay the insurance. So what happens is that the policy gets canceled, and something called forced place insurance comes in that is generated by the mortgage, and that is way more expensive, and the coverage sucks.
Wow.
Yes, but like we can always help out, right? We can always like we have negotiated with carriers of accepting payments that were like 90 days late, you know, and so we can always get it back in order. But that's one of the most common things. So another thing that can cause the forced place insurance is if the homeowner after closing is kind of like not paying attention to their emails. They might miss one other thing that the insurance might have sent them. So every carrier has the right to schedule inspection with the homeowner after the closing. And they can call the homeowner and schedule an actual interior inspection, or it can just be a drive-by. And it's a random selection. Your house might not even get inspected, but they still might do it, like to your neighbor. In these inspections, some things might come up that they don't like, and they will take a picture and they will send it to you. And if the homeowner doesn't reply, the insurance gets canceled. And then again, the forced place insurance comes in. Now, we can always help those situations. We can either find a carrier that will accept whatever didn't pass that inspection, but the rate might be higher, or we can just send a picture of the updated, like after they fixed it, right? But anyways, that's something that happens too, because after closing, people get kind of happy, and they're just like, okay, we're done with the process, it's good. Like, no.
Right, they get too comfortable.
Yeah, look through your emails, make sure that everything's settled, make sure that you sent us the closing disclosure, that we have all documents that we need, and then you're set.
Right.
But yeah.
So have rates gone up?
Yes, drastically, especially in the last year. And there's a few reasons for that, but the main one is fraudulent claims. So what happens is that some homeowners are not really educated, which I understand. Like, I became a homeowner last year, and it can get very confusing, all right? So whenever something comes up that they need to file a claim, a lot of times, instead of just calling the carrier and settling with them, they're like, oh my God, okay, I gotta do a claim. I'm gonna call a lawyer, I'm gonna call a public adjuster, and I'm gonna do a lawsuit against the insurance carrier to, take care of this claim. And a lot of times, that lawsuit is way more money than what it would have been to just fix the claim. So now the insurance carriers are having all these lawsuits against them, and they have lost millions of dollars because of that. And now they are having to drop customers, they're pulling out of zip codes, which is happening a lot in Houston. And some of them are even going bankrupt.
Wow.
And this is just, like whenever the homeowner doesn't really know what to do. But then there's also the predatory practices, where people come and knock on your door and they're like, hey, I saw you have a shingle out of place there. Assign your benefits to us, which is called AOB, assignment of benefits. And let me take care of this for you. And so the insurance carrier, and you're gonna get a new free roof. And then just like that, there's another lawsuit that the carriers have to deal with. They are not prepared to deal with, that are not necessary. So that now everyone else has to pay for it, with the insurance rates going like skyrocketing.
Right.
Right. But hopefully now it's gonna start getting down again, because there are new legislations into place. But it takes time. It's all a process. But
right. So how do people pay for insurance?
All right. So usually when people buy a new house, they do an escrow, right? So you're already paying the insurance up front, and it's included in your closing costs. And that's for year one. After year one, whenever your insurance is renewed, then it goes into your monthly payments for the escrow. So you're probably going to notice after year one, your mortgage payments going up. That's because the insurance renewed and is going into your mortgage payments. Now, let's say you're not you don't have a mortgage or you're paying outside of escrow, you can actually negotiate with the carrier and do a payment plan with them. And they can do like a 2-pay, which is like biannual, 4-pay, 8-pay, or 12-pay, which would be monthly. You can just negotiate with them. Usually I don't think there's any fees. There might be a transaction fee of like $1, $3. If you are paying with credit card, they might charge you a higher fee. But if you use your bank number and your routing number,
account number?
Exactly. That is kind of like a direct deposit, I think, something like that.
Gotcha.
It doesn't have any fees.
So what's the difference between all the insurance companies out there?
All right, so the first thing that comes to mind is the insurance ratings, the carrier's ratings. So always make sure you're working with an A-rated carrier. An A-rated carrier is a carrier that is backed by M-Best and Demotech. It just means that they have the financial backing to cover all the properties that they're insuring. We at Cold Slash, we only work with A-rated carriers. We do not contract with any others because we want to make sure that our clients are taken care of. So that's the first thing. When it comes to differences in prices and insurance rates, it just depends a lot on the appetite of the carrier, and that's what sets them apart. So let's say a carrier specializes more in coastal homes. They're going to set their rates lower on houses by the water. But in urban areas, they might set their prices high because they don't really like to work with those areas. So it just depends on what we call the appetite of the carriers for a certain kind of property.
So how does a claim work?
All right. So first things, I love that question, by the way, because I think we talked about it earlier that people kind of freaked out a little bit whenever it comes to claims.
Right.
So first thing, just make sure that it's worth it to do a claim. Because let's say your deductible for all the perils is $1,500, right? And there's water damage that it will cost $500 to fix. It's not worth it for you to get a claim because you were going to have to pay for that either way. It was not going to get covered. And not only that, it's going to go into your claim history, and it's going to affect what we call your insurance score. So every time that you get an insurance quote, we run your insurance score, and we can see all your claim history. And if you have too many claims, your rates are going to get higher in the future, or it's going to be much harder to find your coverage. So first, make sure that it is worth it. If the claim is worth it, then yes, then you can file the claim. Now, we talked about it earlier that people usually freak out and they're like, okay, let me get a lawyer, let me get a public adjuster. You don't need to do that. Just take a breath, get your policy in front of you with your policy number and your coverages, call the insurance carrier, talk to the claim department, and file a claim. They're gonna send their adjuster there, they're gonna take a look at the claim and see what they can do to cover and fix it for you. And now, let's say the claim is underinsured, then yes, 100%, get a lawyer, sue the insurance company, But I feel like nowadays, because there's so many fraudulent claims, the insurance carriers are so willing to work with you, and they're just like begging for people to just like go straight to them, So they will work with you, they will make sure you're covered. So just call them, settle with them. Take it easy.
Awesome. Well, thanks for stopping by and answering all these questions. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, our job is always to make you guys, real estate agents, mortgage professionals, look like a rock star, get your buyers to closing, make the numbers work. So anything you guys need, we'll help you navigate through this crazy market.
Awesome. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and see you guys in the next episode. I'm Sammy Shahid.
I'm Jessica Rotta. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.